Ah. Okay, here we go. What's up, people? It's Hotep Jesus. We back with another sharp conversation with Hotep Jesus. It's been a while since I've done one of these. Feels good to be back. Talking to some great gentlemen tonight. Um, you're on Twitter and you meet people and you find common interests and you start appreciating minds out here. And two guys who have come across my desk and my social media feed that I really enjoy interacting with. And, I'm a proponent of just like, listen to your elders. I really come from that world of listen to your elders. And these guys definitely have more wisdom than I do. So I learned from them a lot. And we were speaking about and tried to plan this conversation. And I was like, yo, right now is like a really good time to have this conversation with them. So we were able to get this great conversation scheduled. I myself met Red Horse. I haven't had a chance to meet Chief Chuck. Me and Red Horse, we hung out, had lunch in Atlanta. What was that, last year or the year before?
Yeah, it was 2 summers ago.
Right, before, yeah, that was the year before pandemic. Right. When you could actually go outside.
Yeah, when the freedom was sort of still there, apparently.
Hell yeah. So I know, my audience may or may not be familiar with you. So go ahead and I want you guys to tell people where you're from first and foremost. Where you're from, where you're at.
Go ahead, Chief.
All right. Well, thank you. Hey, thanks for having me. This is so cool. I've been wanting to do this for so long. And it's good to be here. Good to talk to good friends. So I'm Chief Chuck. If you see me on Twitter, dad jokes, elder wisdom. I grew up in a little town called Livonia, Georgia. As
Okay.
it is about 45 minutes from the general area where the Mystic is, right up on I-85, right on the Georgia-South Carolina line. Grew up in Georgia, spent most of my early years there, and then departed there and went on to the Navy and eventually to where I'm at now, right outside of our nation's capital. But yeah, grew up with a strong Southern, the old family traditions of a Georgia Southern, and I mean that as you say yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir. Your granny would send you out to pick a switch, and if people in your audience don't know what a switch is, Red Horse and I'll educate them later. But your granny she'd send you out to get a switch, and if you picked the wrong one, she'd go pick one, and she'd come back with a tree branch. But yeah, I grew up with everything that's anti today. I mean, I got my ass beat. I got my back of my head slapped, but I grew up with manners. I grew up with a respect for my elders, with respect for hard work, honesty, honor, and a good cultural background of manners, which, I got to tell you, man, if anybody ever asked me, how did I get to where I am today and how did I become so successful? It's not because I'm smart. I am good looking, but it's mostly because I have manners. That's where I'm from, Hotep.
The reason why I asked, because I prepped for this, right? And the reason why I wanted to ask that first is because you can tell a lot about somebody, about where they're from and the time period they're from, right? So right now I want to go with the where, and then we'll go with the time.
Sure.
And that kind of tells you how they became that individual. Red Horse, are you from Georgia?
No, there's that damn fly I was talking about. Damn. I am as I said earlier, I'm a North Carolina hillbilly. I was born and raised there, but spent a little bit of time in South Alabama for my high school years.
Okay.
But beyond that, once I went in the military, I've been in Georgia ever since, with the exception of 1 year in Tennessee in the early 90s. So I am Southern born and bred. I am, like my brother, a huge proponent of good manners, refinement, respect, You know, our culture is an honor culture, and that's in the best sense of the word. And we look around us, and we've had this discussion online, offline, sober, a little less than sober, and we just we feel like what our mission is, if you want to call it that,
Okay.
is just letting people know that there is another way, there's another option. And having self-respect and dignity is not, it's old school, but it's not old fashioned. It's something that it transcends time, it transcends place, and that's what our scene is. And you'll find if you're going to ask how old we are, we're within like 3 or 4 years of each other. So, we are part and parcel of our upbringing.
Yeah, well, it's not really the age so much. It's more about the time period, right? So we're in some funny times right now, and I really want to just do a flashback, right? Shout out to Def Jules, $2.99 super chat. Appreciate that. Yo, stop grifting. Hit the super chat button. Drop the super chat. Baby needs some new shoes. This show ain't free. And at the very least, stop grifting and hit the like button.
I like a man that knows what he wants.
You know what I'm saying? It's the Hotep Jesus show, damn it. The time period. So in your, I want to say grade school, high school, what do you guys remember about the times, right? The president and the culture of your times. Who was the president? Let's start there. Who were some of the memorable presidencies you remember, and what was it like under those presidents?
Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, when I was in elementary school, I was born in 1963, and in October, and a month later, President Kennedy was assassinated. So, President Johnson came on board, but as I grew up, it was the Johnson, era, and then succeeding and following that, it was just a time. What I remember most, it's quite, it's not a hard conversation to have, but it's a conversation that has to be had. I went to elementary school. We actually integrated when I was in 3rd grade. So, I grew up in a very small rural town, and, Brian, I'm going to tell you, this is probably going to just irritate a lot of your listeners, but it's the truth. Okay. It's what it was. I grew up in a little small town, and the Black population lived in a certain section of town, and then there was everybody else. And, that's just the way it was. And we integrated our elementary school when I was in 3rd grade. And what I remember most about that is, honestly, I go back to that memory, and we didn't really know what was going on around us. Our parents did a good job. We didn't have 24-hour news. Our parents shielded us from it. For us, to be honest with you, it was just like in 3rd grade, it's like, hey, look, we got some new friends. We got new kids. We got new kids to play with. This is awesome. We've been playing with the same group since kindergarten. Yeah. Well, now we got some new friends. So I think, in my early formative years, and I remember my dad was a volunteer firefighter, and I wrote about this before on one of my blogs, is, when Dr. King was assassinated, the town erupted in riots. But I remember that very, very, very sharply that, hey, you know what? We were scared too. Everybody was just scared. It didn't matter what color you were at the end. It was just, everybody was scared. And as we got through that time in Vietnam, I lost a cousin. Everybody was just scared. And I think I've lived long enough now to where I'm seeing the exact same thing in this modern day and time where everybody's scared. Fear is what we're selling, and fear is what's driving our things today. But that's what I remember growing up, and that's what kind of formed me and started getting me on the path that I'm on.
So you're seeing a lot of similarities between then and now?
I am.
With the fear?
Personally. I do. I think people are, they're not so afraid of the events because, here's the thing. 2 days after those riots, I go back to school a few years further along in elementary school. And without the narrative and without being told what to think, we're on the playground playing again. We didn't care. We were kids.
Right.
We didn't care. We were playing. But when people shape the narrative around you and you're susceptible to that, the fear will drive you. And that's where I started learning early. And my dad as a city leader, a fireman, I remember a very poignant lesson is he became a councilman and he went and rode the garbage truck. And I asked him, I was embarrassed as a kid. It's like, man, my dad's riding. But my dad said, how can you lead people and how can you empathize with people if you don't know the situation they're in and you see the world through their view? And that stuck with me. And that's what led me on this thing with honor, respect, empathy. Try to see everybody's vision from their perspective. So
I love that. I love that. Red Horse, same thing. What was the life and times? President, what do you remember of those times?
Well, I was born a couple of months. Well, actually, I don't know if it was. I was so young at the time when I was born. I was born in '61, and that was around the time that the first U.S. astronaut, Commander Alan Shepard, strapped himself onto basically a bomb that had been built by the lowest bidders.
Oh yeah.
Prayed his way up and down for I think it was about a 15-minute flight. My earliest memories are 3 years old. I remember, obviously I don't remember President Kennedy's assassination, but I do remember a year later people being very sad because someone very important had been killed. So, even then that's starting to set in. And like the chief, I went through Johnson and Nixon. I lived through Watergate and all that nonsense. I mean, I really am a product of the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and a little bit of the 2000s. And, I didn't know it at the time. I went to the first elementary school I went to. We were integrated. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what that meant. There were white kids and black kids. And one of my best friends was a chap named Derek. And Derek did not reflect the same amount of light that I did. He was cool. I loved Derek. And but I think it was in the fourth grade, suddenly I had to go to a different school. And I did not know it at the time, but I was being bused to the other side of town to what apparently was a much less common neighborhood than what I grew up in. I mean, it all looked the same to me. Everybody was the same. I was fortunate enough that I was a smart kid and I didn't have any issues. And let me tell you, when I learned in, I don't know if it was the third or fourth grade, that something called slavery existed in the United States. I'm like, what? What? I'm thinking, slavery is, biblical stuff and pharaohs and pyramids and stuff like that. And if people had just left me alone, I wouldn't know who I was supposed to like and dislike. I like people based on who they are. What Dr. King said it is beyond deep. You respect people for their character, not the color of their skin. And that ties in so well to what the chief and I are all about. Character. And you can start out doing dumb shit. I'm a perfect example. And you can develop your character. You can grow and make yourself something that you maybe weren't inherently. It's very few people that are beyond redemption. If people are self-honest, the world's your oyster.
What about the wars? Vietnam, do you remember? Did you?
Oh yeah. Oh man, let me tell you, every night it was the equivalent then of what we have with media now. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, we had 3 stations. CBS, ABC, NBC, and Walter Cronkite every night sitting at the dinner table telling us how many people had been killed in the day's actions. And I missed the draft, I want to say, by 3 years, 4 years. So, I didn't have to deal with that. And, even though I did join the military, I was in the Air Force for a stretch.
Okay.
And, but I mean, it was a thing. It was, why are we, and when you're 6 and 7 and 8 years old, I'm more interested in the moon landing. That was my scene. Yeah. But I mean, it was part of the like I said, it was the equivalent then of what we have now, turned down much, much less. There was no 24-hour news cycle.
Right.
People read newspapers. People read magazines that came out once a month. And, if you wanted something immediate, you might listen to the local AM radio station in between the farm reports and the latest rock and roll single. You might hear something, really bad, like, the whole Watergate fiasco was just unprecedented. Not the criminality of it, but the fact that it was covered the way it was.
Countess of Monte Cristo, $5 super chat. Oh yeah, baby. Appreciate you, homie. Back in the day, did they were people getting canceled for their opinions? Were people, what was the political scene like between Americans? Was it so, partisan, and what was that like?
Well, I can remember some of the protesting that went on in probably, gosh, what was it, Red Horse? It was probably the late 60s, early 70s. By the time I was 10.
The Watts riots and all that.
Yeah. I mean, you saw the protesters, and they were protesting the Vietnam War, and you would see a little bit of it. And then you had, the equal rights marches, and you saw a little bit of that on the news. And, the women's rights, the burning the bras, the hippies all came along. But I think what's different than today is, back then I can remember my grandfather and my pop, they would talk about stuff. And listen, I got to say this right now. You really want to know I'm just going to cut to the chase. You know what's killing the world right now?
What's that?
We need old school barbershops.
Yeah.
We need old school barbershops where the men used to go. You didn't have to get your hair cut. but the men sat around and they discussed the politics of the day. You heard the stories, and you would hear your parents, you'd hear the men around you talking about these things, but it's like, it was always an undertone of, hey, you know what? That's their right. Good on them. Back then, I think we had more of a, I don't know if you can say it was a respect for an opinion, but what it was a respect for your right to have an opinion.
Acceptance of a different opinion, not even embrace of it, but acceptance. Okay. Yeah. I think you are off base. I think you're wrong. As long as you're not forcing that on me or a threat to my family or to someone that can't defend themselves, there you have it.
I mean, you had the political parties that were always there, but there was always those handful of statesmen that we don't have anymore. The statesmen would always come together, and they would know how to compromise. They understood that, hey, man, I'm going to go all out in this direction. You're going to go all out in this direction. We both know that we're out of the box. We're never going to get to that. So let's come somewhere in the middle, and we both get a little bit of what we want. And you saw that a lot. I think that was what I remember, and what I miss about the political climate then was, hey, people had a respect for your difference to do what you wanted to do. Mm-hmm. You may have an opinion. I may think you're dumber than a box of hammers, but it's your right to be dumber than a box of hammers. Mm. And I'll help you out if I need to. Mm. But we also respected the differences, and we knew how to compromise. I think that's a big difference of what we're missing today.
And even into, tell me, even into your adulthood, because your adulthood is probably happening in the 90s and the 2000s, right? So I still feel like people still had a little bit of that same culture.
Oh dear.
Uh-oh.
I don't want to leave a thread dangling.
No, please.
A pivot point where there was the first transition. That was Kennedy's assassination.
Okay.
Innocence was lost with that. That changed the world. It was said that 9/11 was our JFK assassination. Well, for those who need measure of that, Kennedy's assassination was their 9/11. It changed the world. And that was the first loss of innocence. I think the next big loss of innocence was Dr. King's assassination, Bobby Kennedy's assassination, then even more than Watergate, the things that happened at Kent State, where the National Guardsmen killed several college kids that were protesting. Things have never recovered from that. So, my really my young adult years were late 70s through the 80s. I hit my 30s in the early 90s. So, like I said, I am a product of, I am a child of the 60s. I am a child of the 70s. I am a child of the 80s. I am a child of the 90s. And I'm kind of hopefully an adult in the 2000s and the naughty aughties or whatever. But the thing that a lot of people, when we got into the whole lack of accountability and personal responsibility, I've commented several times on Twitter over the years about the fact that nature doesn't give out participation trophies. You can't just show up and say, "Give me my trophy."
Yeah.
You do that, and you do that out in the wild, and you might end up dead. So you have to be accountable now. And what is missing in this day and age, among the lack of accountability, is mentors, fathers, exemplars, mothers to a lesser degree on the feminine aspect, certainly. But okay, you screwed up. Now let's talk about and how to fix it and to make sure you don't do the same thing again. That I always say, make new mistakes.
Yeah.
So that's a huge thing. And the chief can talk on this a whole lot more than I can about what once was a great institution, that being the Boy Scouts, and what that used to do for young men.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's the political wokeness that we have walked into over the past years, and the lack of accountability, and there's personal responsibility. Don't get me wrong. There's leaders in the Boy Scouts that did wrong. There's Catholic priests that did wrong. There's a lot of people doing wrong. So let's call that even, take that off the plate, zero sum. The premise behind what the Boy Scouts, and to a degree what the Girl Scouts were doing, was I was a Boy Scout leader all during my son's scout career with Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts. The value that no one sees is being able to have that time where you have young men out in the woods camping, learning skills. But where I made the money, and I say money in life currency, is, call it chief coin if you'd like, and I'll sell you some for, no, we're not doing cryptocurrency. But no, I mean, I made my money is you could sit around night around a campfire and you talk, and I had that opportunity in a setting that I could tell stories, and I could relate to young men about this is how we as men of honor act. This is how you act as a gentleman. This is how you treat people. The same reason we had for merit badges, they had to go to an adult. We were teaching young men how to go and talk to an adult about a serious topic, which was really to prepare them to go do a job interview.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have Zoom. We didn't have WebEx. We didn't have Microsoft Teams. You had to go in and sit in front of someone and do a job interview.
Yeah.
But we lost that when we could hold young men accountable. Being an Eagle Scout, my son was an Eagle Scout. I wasn't, because I got the fumes. I got the perfumes, the car fumes, and I let it slide. But my son was an Eagle Scout, and it used to carry weight on the resume because of what you were held accountable to have to do to earn that.
Yes.
And earn is the key word.
Yeah.
So, we are losing, and that's what Red Horse and I are trying to do, is take young men and you have to be accountable for yourself, but you also have to learn how to walk with honor. You have to walk with integrity. And what is character? Character is your integrity. How do you act when I'm not looking? Stuff like that. Very, very basic, simple stuff, but we've lost holding young men accountable. And I'm not going to speak to young women, not saying they don't need mentoring, not saying they don't need leadership, but in the context of the conversation of what I'm good at is teaching young men how to live with honor, how to live with integrity, how to be accountable to yourself, and I mean, you've seen it. You've tweeted about it. You've commented about it. Red Horse has done it. There's nothing more than we love calling out of people, and we just hammer them, and they deserve it. We hammer people that if you're going to come online and be stupid and not be accountable for what your mouth says through the fingers on your keyboard, we're going to call you on it, and you deserve it.
I feel like some of that is got to do with what you were talking about earlier. Like you said, back in the day, you had to deal with corporal punishment. Did you deal with corporal punishment, Red Horse?
Oh, yeah. Oh, hell yeah. I am intimately familiar with the business end of a belt.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go out and get my own switch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did the perp walk. Oh, yeah. And, I know that there are differing perspectives on that. Even a lot of the guys that we all mutually respect, are, anti-corporal punishment. If you've not been taught how to use it properly, you definitely don't need to be dispensing it. That's, we use the term, we got beatings, we got beatings. Well, man, my mama, I got a beating last night. But you have to look at what that meant at the time. I was never abused mentally, physically, emotionally, or spiritually. I was taught. When I was raising my son, I tried to better the way I had been raised, and I made a lot of mistakes with him. I really did. Not that I didn't hold him accountable, but one dirty little secret about life, and the chief and I will go ahead and tell you right now, we're all making this stuff up as we go. Whether you're 20 or whether you're 98 years old, sure, the chief and I have got some years under our belt. We've got some experiences. We've got knowledge, wisdom. Yeah. But, there are people in my life that are in their 80s, and I still refer to them as sir and ma'am. And I listen now to what they say, where I didn't want to listen when I was, a teenager or even up into my probably early 30s.
Oh yeah, we had the high school principal and teachers. We had paddles in our school.
Oh, y'all was getting beat in school.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. If you wanted to, and I was a class clown. Trust me, I got my young ass pulled up in front of the class, and the principal would walk the halls twirling his paddle. They had holes drilled in them to lessen the air resistance. So it was part science project and part corporal punishment. But the thing was, is they'd pull you in there for being the clown, and they give you like one. They would give you one. Bend over and grab your ankles. They give you one. But here's the thing. They did it in front. They explained this is why you're in trouble. This is why you're being punished. And they did it in front of people to set that example. There's always going to be an example.
Yeah.
And when my dad would spank me, but my dad would always sit, and I thought it was the biggest lie I ever heard him when I was a child. when my dad would say, son, this hurts me more than it's going to hurt you. Until I became a father and I had to dispatch punishment and discipline, and it crushes your heart.
It does.
To have to discipline your child, but you know it's for their own good. And everybody needs to remember, discipline, disciple, it all comes from the word teach. And that's what you're doing. Sometimes you have to get the point across in such a way that it's not violent, it's not abuse, it's an attention getter, because kids are knuckleheads and they're hard-headed. And it's, you know what, and I don't advocate it today, because I think what Red Horse said is correct, is too many people do not know how to distribute it properly.
What does that mean? How do you do it properly?
Properly, in my understanding and the way that I would recommend, or I'm like the chief, I wouldn't even teach someone how to do this, is the understanding of, you want to get someone's attention. And, you know, with me, we all had our, I'm pretty sure the chief can agree with this. We all had our least favorite way of being disciplined. With me, it was a belt. With some other kids I knew at the time, it was the switch. You know, switch to me was nothing. I mean, you could come at me with a branch and but a belt. And the thing of it is, a belt. We're going into an S&M discussion here. It's more and the same thing with the paddle too. It's more the sound. Yeah, it's one of those weird things. The worse it sounds, the less it hurts. You know, I feel really sorry for, you know, kids that grew up a generation before me that were on the receiving end of razor straps. Those damn things, 3 inches wide, about 24 inches long, and probably about 1/4 of an inch thick. They were cowhide. And those things, from what I've heard of people that were on the receiving end of a lesson from a razor strap, that did often cross the line.
I think Brian too, one of the things is you get it done in front of the class, and it was embarrassing.
Oh, that's the big pain.
So you would get embarrassed. So that became the trigger to not do this behavior. It wasn't you were worried about getting paddled. It was embarrassing to grab your ankles and get hit on your butt in front of your friends because they're laughing at you. At home, when you got punished, my dad, I never forget, my dad was he was the one. You wait till your father gets home.
Yeah.
So that gave you about 4 hours to just dread it. And you couldn't eat, you couldn't enjoy your afternoon snack. You didn't want to watch, you know, the Flintstones. You didn't want to do this. You were just dreading dad coming home. Yeah. And then when dad did it, he would administer his punishment. And then he would always go, you know, I think what bothers me more, son, is you disappointing me.
Yeah.
So you transition as you get older. You can slap a kid, you can pop his ass, hit him with the butt. But what really started getting me, and to this day, and here's what's important, I am 57 years old. My dad has been passed away for 10 years now.
God bless.
Every day that I wake up, I ask my Creator, please don't let me disappoint my dad today. That's where I come from. That's what drives me, is my dad. Is still to this day, I do not want to disappoint him, and I want to be the man he was. Sorry.
Breezy 499 said, sounds like the era when the modern day neocons were becoming the dominant force in the GOP. I'm 21, but much respect to y'all. Appreciate you for the super chat. I want to talk about. Thank you, people. We appreciate you.
I don't know what a neocon is, so.
Neocon are like the new conservatives that are like war hawks and
okay.
Yeah, those types.
Okay.
They ain't that new, because we had a president that was pretty damn good, and a good general in World War II that warned us about the military-industrial complex, and that was in
Hey, the military-industrial complex pays my salary, so easy.
Yeah.
guys are talking about a lot of masculine power, seems like, in your life and the masculine influence. I believe some of that is missing today. Would you guys agree that was missing? And what else is it about the masculine energy and what that imposes upon young men specifically that makes them turn out different, and the missing piece and that whole dynamic?
Well, there are multiple vectors at play, things here. Number one is the ubiquitous lack of reliable masculine influence in young men and young boys' lives. I was raised by a very strong sister.
Okay.
But my sister, she couldn't teach me how to stand up and pee. She couldn't teach me, from a male side about sex. She couldn't teach me, what it is to be a man. So that's part of it. Number two, and I'm not going down a conspiracy lane here, but it is a fact. Our bodies have taken a poison load over the last 50 years that is unprecedented in history. It occurred to me many years ago that, for the longest time, when we come out of our mama's womb, we immediately went to the tit, and we received the nourishment of life from our mother externally that she gave us, 9 months on the inside. Then, if that didn't work, or supplementally, we had milk from in bottles, and it was in the late 40s, I think, or early 50s, that they started coming up with these formulas to feed babies, and it was all soy. And we joke about soy this, soy that. Well, there's science to it, and I'm talking real science, not Fauci science. So that combined, I ain't playing. Combined with the lack of a steady male presence, and combined with the let's just call it as it is, the utter brainwashing that is the government education system for the last 60 years. Young men don't know how to be young men. And that's why they flounder. And I mean, as I said, I grew up in the 60s, and it still took me at least into my 30s, and certainly into my 40s before I began to grok and to realize how off the mark I was about my view about myself, about my view with the world around me, about my view with women. And just it's like, damn, I'm going to have to spend the last half of my life fixing what I did wrong in the first half.
Yeah.
You seem like you had a great relationship with your dad. Tell us about what you feel about this whole masculine and that missing piece. Because Mystic said something, very pivotal. He said that these kids don't even know how to do it. They don't have enough examples.
Yeah, no, you're right. And, we could spend 2 days talking about my views on the red pill stuff on Twitter. And I think what's important to understand is masculinity is just being promoted today is not all about, notch count, swooping girls, stuff like that. It's not all about that. It is about how to interact with women respectfully and finding that partnership, but having a good relationship with my dad. And I saw it when I was in the military, when as I became senior and we would get, guys coming in 18, 19, you could see to where the traditional households of a mother, father weren't present, and they didn't have that male influence. And they crave that. Young men crave that. They don't know it, but they do. And so they look for that mentor. So I think, even when it comes down to me being the mean old Navy chief, I'm going to put my boot up your ass. I'm riding you hard, but it's because it's out of a place of I see potential in you. I think that's what some of the men today that are in the position to mentor and be exemplars to young men, you have to make sure that you do it from a place of love and that you see potential. And that's what you're wanting to do. You're wanting to raise the next generation up. We have to reach behind us. So the masculinity today, they may or may not be focusing on the wrong things, but we have to shift that to go, what is it that we need to teach our young men? And we don't need to be putting down single parent. We don't need to be putting down single women parents. That's not constructive. What you need to do is you need to be reaching out inside your own community. Everybody worries about Bitcoin. They're worried about President Biden. They're worried about this. They can't tell you who their local councilmen are. They don't know who the people in their local community are. Fix yourself. Fix yourself. Quit worrying about trying to get a woman to like you. You won't get a woman to like you until you like yourself.
Uh-oh.
Be that man that you are proud to talk to in the mirror in the morning. Be that man. And then people will flock to you. People will want to hear your message. People will want to talk to you. And then you're not preaching at a young man. That young man's just going to soak up your wisdom. And the last point, I think that masculinity forgets today on Twitter, on Facebook, wherever it is in real life. And I learn this lesson daily on Twitter. And Red Horse in our circle reminds me, just when I think I'm not getting my message across, that's when they remind me that people are reading. They may not respond, but people are watching us all the time.
Yep.
You know,
It's true.
you have a huge audience. You may put out a tweet and you might think, well, gosh, did anybody... Unfortunately, over the internet, we don't know what young man who read that and said, you know what? Hotep's got a point and he's got his shit together. I think I'm gonna take his advice. Or he reads Red Horse and goes, hey, maybe life is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there is beauty in life. And maybe he reads my stuff and he goes, honor, what is he talking about? And he DMs me, or he goes and just Googles it. I don't care. But that's what we need to understand, is that's the whole exemplar thing, is you have to remember somebody's little eyes are watching all the time. And we need to focus on that.
You hit on this word, and I ran across a piece of information on social media the other day, and it was talking about, I don't even know how real it was. It's just a meme, and it said that in some Asian culture, maybe it was China, maybe it wasn't, they said that before they teach a child, all this math and science and English, the first thing they taught them was a code of honor. And I thought that was like, and like ethics, right? Like raise the child on that first, and then they'll have respect for the knowledge that you bestow upon them. But you mentioned this word honor, right? So tell me, because I've been thinking about this word honor a lot. So I was even telling a friend today about this whole thing about honor. Like a lot of people miss that even with their families. So I want you guys to tell me, what is honor? What exactly is that phenomenon?
This is your wheelhouse, Chuck. I'm going to let you keep going with it.
Okay. To your point is I did business for the government in Taiwan. Spent quite a lot of time there and made friends and got to visit a Taiwan school. And in Taiwan, the first 2 years of their education, they don't do anything. They don't learn to read, write. They don't do math.
Okay.
They come into school in the morning, and the first thing they do is their exercises. They do exercises. They learn their basic language, their basic manners. There are no janitors in a Taiwan school. The kids clean the school themselves. And they're taught that ethic of you clean up after yourself. You make a mess, you clean it up. They go to school year round. And then as they get into their lessons, they have to learn English by grade 4. But they learn their ethic first, and they learn how to work first, and they learn how to learn. But to honor... And I'll reply to honor the same way I've done this before on other conversations, is I'll ask you a question about honor. So there's a flood. There's massive destruction. A man's food is wiped out. His family's at home. He's got a kid. He walks by a store. Doors open from the flood. There's bread and milk there. Cooler's out, nobody's around. The man takes the bread and the milk, takes it home, and he feeds his family. Does that man have honor?
I'm scared to answer.
No, I mean, It's an open question, and I want to make people think, because my response is someone will say, "Well, he stole."
Yeah.
Okay, he did. He stole, but he did it to feed his family.
Yeah.
So honor, to me, what I tell people what honor isn't a thing. Honor is it's almost like a life currency.
Mm.
Honor is what you do. If you're willing to do something you believe in that is morally right, regardless of a written law or rule, and you do it for the right reasons without any regard, or with due regard to the sacrifice that it may cause you, that's honor. It's living a moral code. You got to remember, I tell everybody, the Declaration of Independence, and it's not the first words that matter, it's that last sentence. The Declaration of Independence was just one big bitchy tweet, if you want to look at it. These dudes got together in Philadelphia. They wrote a mean tweet about how pissed off they were at King George and how pissed off they were with all the bullshit that was going on. But at the end, what they said is, hey, we're tired of your shit. We're not going to take it. And to this endeavor, we pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Mm. You notice they didn't say their sacred lives. You notice they didn't say their sacred fortunes. But they were willing to put up their sacred honor, and they pledged it. Mm. That to each other, they were going to do the morally right thing of what they thought was right without due regard to the consequences that were coming, or consequences be damned. That's what honor is how you act every day to your moral code. I can't tell you what's honorable. You have to tell it. And I'll tell you what, brother, when you lay that head down on that pillow at night, I don't care. Your demons will either come back to haunt you because you weren't, or you're going to sleep like a baby because you were. And only you know that.
And there's let me pick up that football he just lateraled about the milk and the bread.
Okay.
We part of what has been taught for so long is that everything in the world is binary. Is in the it's up, down, left, right, good, bad, right, wrong. This is one of those instances where it's not binary. So the fact that it's hammered into young skulls full of mush that there are zero tolerance policies about anything. Zero tolerance policies are zero thought policies. There are circumstances are not taken into consideration. It's either this or that. And if you can't make one of those two choices, a lot of times it's like a robot that's just kind of stuck and it can't make a decision. You think about that chap that went into the store and got the bread and milk, and he felt terrible about having to do what he did. But a man of honor, when things got cleaned up, when things got put back together, he might go and help the guy that was in that owned the store. He said, "Look, this is what I did, and I felt bad about it, but I did what I had to do to feed my family. I want to help you rebuild. At the very least, let me pay for what I bought and give you some interest. Let me do something." Mm-hmm. That moves into my wheelhouse of what I'm always talking about: refinement. And taking something that's just a basic thought and a basic premise and making it something more beautiful, more human, more magical. So it's not just an either or. It's not Les Miserables, stealing that bread, baby. No, there's a whole plethora of possibility out there, and a man of honor doesn't use that as an excuse. I look back on my youth, and I was. If you had a meter that went from 0 to 10, I was a 6, maybe a 7 on the good side, but that means there was a lot that I didn't get right the first time. And again, what I alluded to earlier, I'm spending my the second half of my life, making right the things that I did wrong as a young man. It's very easy when if someone was to just drop in on this conversation and hear us talking about discipline and belts and whipping and all that they would get the wrong, for me at least, the wrong perspective on things. I try to lead now. I want to be the proctor that walks into a young room full of men and very quietly says, feet, and everybody is up on their feet, rather than being a drill sergeant. Get up on your goddamn feet, you lowlifes. That's so boring. It's so ultimately ineffective. I want to deal with people. I want to live in a world where people want to be there, wherever there is. And so, if you come to me and say you want to learn something and your actions don't match what you have stated, we ain't gonna be together very long. Now, but if you come in, all right, I wasn't raised to know these things. I don't really know. I'm confused, but I'm willing to. You're talking to me like a human being. You're talking to me like you are showing me, you are recognizing dignity, and hopefully soon our interactions will be such that you respect me. So that's you put that on top of that's the superstructure on top of the frame of honor that my brother has so elegantly and eloquently spoken about so many times, least of all tonight.
Y'all dropping change all over the place tonight. Breezy 499. He says, thank you. He says, need many more men like these two, and HJ, of course. Appreciate the love, man. Appreciate the love. Hey, people in the chat, stop grifting, hit the super chat button, drop some change in here. Baby need new shoes. At the very least, hit the like button. Likes are free. I have a nice question for you guys. We're about to round home here. Let's pretend I'm an alien that just crash landed to Earth and I pop up on you guys. And I'm watching the news and I'm looking at social media. I've acquired somebody's cell phone and I'm watching social media and I'm just like, what is going on with this life form on this planet and all this arguing and the good and the bad of our society, specifically the United States of America. How would you explain that to somebody who doesn't understand what's happening? Or even, let's say it could have been somebody who spent a lot of time in jail, right? And they came home to this, what it is now. How do you even begin to unpack, what's happening in these times?
Hoteps, I ask that question every day, especially in the last 18 months. I'm looking, just when you think you can't get any more stupid, the stupid meter pegs a little more. That damn needle is bent, my man. And if there is anything to the whole simulation argument, it's what we're seeing on a day in and day out basis. I cannot for the life of me talk about gaslighting. And I ain't going in any, I don't want to get about the panic. I don't want to get up any more into politics than we already have. I'm just, it's like the absurdity level is, if you were to tell me tomorrow that, okay, we have it on good authority that Godzilla is real and we'll be making an appearance in the NYC with King Kong hanging out with him, and they'll both be wearing pink tutus. At this point, I'm like, it may not be a pink tutu, but I'm probably sure it will be a tutu. Yeah. It's just, so I couldn't explain it to them. And, if I was to do the typical thing of, man, I don't know what these people are doing, but I ain't like this at all. I ain't like this. Hoteps ain't like this. But they, there are other people who would say the same thing about us. So the only way to be able to explain and to get the message across, and this is a fundamental for both my brother and I, is you can't change the world. You got to change yourself. And through the changing of yourself, being the exemplar, being the example that other people go, and this is my saying, I don't know what it is you got, I just know that I want it.
Yeah.
And hopefully we would have enough time to interact with said alien before they brought out the death ray and, zoomed us all up into some alternate dimension. That's my understanding of it. Chuck, you may have a different way of looking at it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great question. And, you do have to wonder what it would be like if you had to do that, if you had to explain it to them. I think what I would do is, to try to explain it to them, assuming they can understand my language and can understand and what with me is, or even somebody that comes out of jail that wonders what's going on in the past, 10, 15, 20 years. I'd take them back to reset. I'd take them somewhere and I would make them listen to a baby laugh. Listen to this baby laugh. This is pure. This is as pure as it gets. This is innocence. This is not knowing the world as we know it. This baby's just laughing. Why is it laughing? It's happy. Does it know why it's happy? No. Does it know that it's happy because it took a cold shower? It suntanned its balls. It went and did deadlifts. It only ate meat, and it bought a Gumroad course by a guru that told him how to be happy. That baby doesn't know that. That baby's just happy because that baby is happy. It doesn't need a reason. It doesn't need a why. And you just take it and you show the alien, that's baseline pure. You see what's going on now. This is the opposite end of the spectrum. Somewhere along the line, what takes us, there's no reason we still can't be just purely happy for the sake of being happy. We can. It's in us. But somewhere along the way, we've allowed all of these outside influences to convince us this is what you're supposed to do. Buy our product. Our shampoo will make your hair shinier. No, buy our product. Our car will make you cooler. Smoke my cigarettes. Drink my liquor. Do this, do that, do that. Till you just don't know anymore. And sooner or later, people snap and the evil will take over. And some people become inherently evil because they can't help themselves. So you tell the alien, it's like, this is what happened. Can we go back to pure? Sure, we could. Life is what it is. But that's how you explain what happened is, and I think this is a life thing to me, is, what's your why? If anybody's ever watched Simon Sinek on YouTube, he authored Leaders Eat Last, but he also did a YouTube video on what's your why? What makes Apple, Southwest, all these people we know but different is we know how we do things, we know what we do, but what's our why? What's your why? Why are you doing this tonight? Because you like sitting on a Friday night talking to two old geezers on YouTube? Nah, man, you're doing this because you're trying to get a message out.
Yeah.
You're trying to get the word out. Same reason we're doing it. What's my why? Why? I want people to be better. And I want them to be better only because it makes them better, but they'll make the next generation better. And that generation will make the next generation better. It's the only legacy that I've got. Legacy isn't a thing. Legacy is a why. That's what it's all about.
Red Horse, did you want to piggyback off that?
Oh, I think anything I add to that would just be taken away from it.
I know. I mean, he really, really nailed it. We've been meaning to have this conversation for a really long time. We finally had the conversation. I knew it would be epic. I just knew.
Well, I'm good for a round 2 down the road if you want to do it.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm blown away. I'm blown away at the conversation we had tonight. Really, really touched, really inspired by you two guys, more than I expected to be. And that's no diss. That's a compliment.
Okay.
When we do round 2, I'd like to come and really refine some of the solutions and some of the things we can do as a community to alleviate some of these problems. But thank you for coming on the channel, man. Both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invite. This is
absolutely.
Tell the people where they can find y'all.
Twitter for me is Billy Red Horse. If I happen to disappear because Jack doesn't like something I say, Always gentlemanmystic.com, thegentlemanmystic.com. I'm on Twitter. You can find me on Minds and Gab, and but still, so far, I'm mining the gold that is Twitter, because I have a community there. I mean, I consider both of y'all more than acquaintances. Both of you are friends. We've both we've sat down and shared meals together. We've talked offline many times about things important and things silly, and that's the kind of stuff that we can that is going to make the changes. It's not some formula, and like Chuck was picking at, it's not some Gumroad course. It's being able to see that there are other possibilities. And the chief and I, we are peddlers of possibility.
Woo.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I mean, if you're looking for me, mostly these days, it's on Twitter. It's at Chief Chuck 2K. ChiefChuck.com. It's been a while since I've written anything. I'm wrapped up with a new job and a whole lot of other stuff going on, but that's okay. That's life, and I love it. It's a beautiful thing. I think one of the greatest gifts that I've ever had bestowed upon me is the ability to put into words and thoughts some of the things that my dad taught me, some of the things of my heritage and history. It's too easy to look back on our heritage and cancel it. People are trying to cancel heritage every day. Take the bad. You got to learn from the bad and the good. From the bad comes good, and sometimes from the good comes bad. But either way, we're all on the other side. We're all on this. Good artist, country artist, sort of meta modern Sturgill Simpson. It's turtles all the way down the line. We're just a bunch of folks riding on a little dot on the back of a turtle through space and time. Enjoy what we got. If people want to know, if you got questions about, you want to probe a little deeper into honor and leadership, drop me a line, man. I'll give you the links that I read. I'll give you my thoughts. But I think you're right. We need to talk next time about community, because it is a community. We're like I said, we're all networked in some way, shape, or form. There's 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I'm sitting here trying to figure out how the three of us will tie to Kevin Bacon, but I'm sure we will at some point in time. But no, listen, appreciate everything you do online, man. You guys, between Hotep Nation, your accounts, everybody that follows you, you guys are preaching the truth, and I love you guys because it's without bias, it's without filter. It's, the truth is the truth. Right. And people got to understand that. So, let's keep rocking, man. Love you guys.
I love it. Gentleman Mystic, thank you very much for suggesting it was. I have to give credit to you. This was your idea. You were like, yo, this would be dope. And when you said it, I'm like, yeah, that would be dope. When are we going to do this? And I just been like crazy busy. I just had a baby and everything like that. So I'm glad we finally got a chance to do it. And when the time is right, we're going to do this again.
Sure.
And impart some good wisdom on the people. Arnold A said, thank you there, Arnold. He said, this is a great conversation with awesome and real men. Yeah, man, these guys are great. Make sure you catch up with them on YouTube, on Twitter and their respective websites. Especially support the websites so you can get in contact with them directly. This has been another Sharp Conversation with Hotep Jesus. You can subscribe to my podcast. Just type in Sharp Conversations, Sharp with an E, and it'll pop right up. Or just type in Hotep Jesus. It'll pop up that way as well. And you can catch the audio version of this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. We are out, people. Peace. Hotep.
Hey.
Love y'all. And you can catch the audio version of this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. We are out, people. Peace. Hotep.